Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas.
Tonight's commission meeting. At this time, I'll call the meeting to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call. Philbrook.
Here.
Bynum.
Here.
Burrows.
Here.
Townsend.
Here.
McKiernan.
Here.
Mugia.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Kane.
Here.
Markley.
Here.
Walters.
Here.
Alvey.
Here. This evening, our invocation is being given by Sister Therese Bangert of Our Lady and St. Rose Catholic Church.
God of light, the decorative lights on the poles along Marinovich Way, the festive Christmas tree lighting the entrance here to City Hall, and the decorations outside this chamber. All of these remind us that this is a special time of year, a time of celebrating, gathering, giving, praying. And today, God, many of us in Christian traditions remember your son Nicholas, Saint Nicholas, a man born 17 centuries ago in what is now Turkey. Nicholas was noted for his kindness and his gifts to the poor and sick. He was the precursor of today's Santa Claus. So God, as children in many lands put out their shoes to receive candies and treats on St. Nicholas Day, I ask you to bless this commissioner meeting and these commissioners. May the policies they enact be noted for kindness and assistance to the poor and the sick. Fill their shoes and hearts with light and kindness and patience. And before we finish this prayer, loving God, I ask you to hear our combined plea to give the gifts of grace and peace to the hearts and Christmas gatherings of all those in our community who have lost loved ones to violence. And please hear our plea for the gifts of grace and peace to the hearts and Christmas gatherings of the families of Deputies Rohr and King. Give special comfort to their children, Bailey, Austin, and Lexi, Emma, and Connor. I pray in the name of our brother Jesus, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any revisions to tonight's agenda?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, a blue sheet was distributed on yesterday. Under Section 8 Public Hearing Agenda, we have a revised ordinance that has minor revisions, and also an executive session has been included. We have executive summary has been included. Also, there's a clerical error on Section 8 of the Public Hearing Agenda. It's item number 2. It should read Public Hearing Ordinance Boyer KC MOB, Medical Office Building LCIRBs.
Thank you. That takes us to our consent agenda. Does any member of the commission, staff, or citizen in attendance tonight wish to set aside any item on tonight's consent agenda? You would need to step forward at this time and state your name and city of residency for the record. We ask that the item be set aside.
Second.
To be clear, if an item is not set aside, all items on the consent agenda will be voted on by one vote. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. Our next order of business is the continuation of a public hearing from November 29th to consider various actions regarding the Northwest Speedway Star Bond project. I'd ask the staff to make some opening remarks.
Thank you, Mayor. As stated, this is a continuation. We did a presentation last week. As was noted by the clerk, we did do a blue sheet that came out on this. There was really a clarification to the documents that were set out, making clear the fact that we were continuing the public hearing from the 29th to the 6th, and then also talk about a little bit of just a clarification of the dispersing agreements in our escrow with Security Bank. And while we were doing that, we decided we should go ahead and just issue out the executive summary, which we would review in part through the presentation tonight. So they are, I would say, very routine in nature from the documents forward. All the substantive material was submitted with the original document. And with that, I will turn this over to Catherine Carter, our Interim Economic Development Director, to make a presentation and then allow us to continue with the public hearing process. Ms. Carter?
Thank you. Good evening. Catherine Carter, Interim Economic Development Director. For, I think, pretty much all of you, this will look a bit repetitive from last week, but we figure there are probably at least new folks in the audience and maybe some others watching. So I will just kind of zip through this and let me know if you have any questions. So the requested action tonight will be continuing the public hearing that was opened last week. And then once that is closed, then we'll ask you to consider the following action regarding the Northwest Speedway Star Bond project. It'll be one ordinance, but within that ordinance, it will cover the project plan, the issuance of the Star Bonds, as well as the First Amendment to the development agreement. So just as a quick primer, this is currently approved as a $160 million project back in October of 2017. And with all Star Bonds, that is there's a requirement for a 50% private match. So at this time, we're looking at an $80 million Star Bond project. Will actually be 95 when all the fees and things are taken into account, and then an $80 million private match. So the American Royal did kick off their campaign to start raising this funding this summer, and their goal is to raise a minimum of that $80 million. I think the likelihood is that the project will get bigger, and so raising a little more will give them a little more flexibility in the future. So at this time, they are finalizing the design and programming. Again, this is the STAR district that was approved back in October of 2017. The northeast corner is Plaza at the Speedway. That, again, is only state contribution of sales tax, while the remainder of the area would be both state and local. The site plan, I'm sure this will be tweaked as we move into kind of more finalized plans, but at this time they are looking at having a fairly large complex that will include arenas, multiple arenas, a warm-up arena, a variety of different barns and exhibition space, as well as an educational museum. That was very important to Neil Patterson's estate to get that included. So we're looking forward to seeing kind of further iterations as they get further into the design process. So again, the financing, as I mentioned earlier, this will be a total issuance of about $95 million. Now, one of the changes in the amended agreement tonight is that there will be kind of a first tranche, first drawdown of $10 million that will be restricted use, so that will be solely for the purchase of the property as well as the infrastructure. So that will be $20 million total, $10 million in the STAR bonds, $10 million in the private match. Then once we can get started on that, then the final $70 million will be remain in escrow account until the remainder of the $70 million has been raised and they can actually start construction. So timing and next steps today. Again, we will complete the public hearing and then ask that you consider the ordinance. There is one change in the bond documents. It does say that the bond issuance would take place in late December. I think we've decided that that will actually be the first week of January, so just want to alert you to that, a minor change, but about 2 weeks difference. And then construction, we're hoping infrastructure will start in the spring with late 2019, the actual construction of the American Royal. That's all I have.
Here with that, we'd recommend you continue the public hearing from last week.
Thank you. So I now open the public hearing. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor of this item? If so, please step to the podium, give us your name and city of residency for the record. You'll be given up to 3 minutes to state your comments.
My name is Steve Allison. I live in New Hampshire, Center Sandwich, New Hampshire. My family owns the land where the American Royal hopes to build their facility. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Royal, and what I'd like to do, if I may, is very quickly talk about two things. I want to talk about history, and I want to talk about the future. With regard to the history, as all of you know better than I do, the American Royal has quite a history in Kansas City. This past Thanksgiving, we was having a dinner with my mom and my kids, and she started recounting a story of taking a train from New York out to Kansas City to visit her grandfather, who was J.W. Perry, and who took her to the American Royal to see a horse show. And this was in the 40s. So there's a little bit of history, at least with my family, with the American Royal, which for us is meaningful. However, I think the next piece of history I'd like to talk about is what's transpired over the last 2 years. About 2 years ago, I sat down with Cliff Illig and talked about the idea of the American Royal moving to my family's ground. We ultimately set up a contract to have that happen, and it's been a long time. It's been 2 years. And I keep getting asked by people that I know in the city, you know, what's the story with this? And frankly, we went in contract, we went out of contract, and we're back in contract again. And I want to tell you all that basically the business terms that we had established with the American Royal haven't changed. We have not done that. Our attitude is we're a partner. This is a partnership with us and the American Royal, and frankly, with the state and the unified government. And the best partnerships are partnerships where people keep their word and they set out their objectives up front and live by them as they move forward. So I want to share with you that is indeed at least our perspective and where we're coming from.
You have 1 minute, sir.
Okay. With regard to the future, the American Royal has been described to all of you, but I don't think you've heard what I've heard. I've spent a lot of time talking to the Secretary of Transportation about the vision of making this a real center point for agriculture in the state and in the country. I've talked to her about the idea of setting up an ag tech incubator setup. We've talked to, or she's talked to, I should say, the president of K-State about this. I told her I have a good friend in Boston who runs a nanotechnology company, one of the foremost nanotechnologists in the country, who believes there's a big opportunity for nanotechnology in agriculture, and she would love to get engaged in a tech incubator out here. So we're spending a lot of time trying to figure out how to make this much more than just the American Royal, but rather a center point, if you will, for the agribusiness sector of the economy. That's why I'm personally very excited about it, and I hope to see it come to fruition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else who'd like to speak in favor? Seeing none, is there anyone present in opposition who would like to speak on this item? If so, please come to the podium, give us your name, city of residency for the record. You'll also be given 3 minutes. All right, if there are no further comments from the public, I'll close the public hearing. Do any members of the commission have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley. Walters. Vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. Item number 2 is a public hearing to consider the issuance of industrial revenue bonds for Boyer KC Medical Office Building. I'd have staff make some opening remarks before taking public comments.
I will ask Ms. Carter to come forward and offer comments on this prior to the public hearing.
Good evening once again, Catherine Carter. This is the requested action tonight is a public hearing as well as approval of an ordinance authorizing the issuance of industrial revenue bonds in an amount not to exceed $11 million. This is the Boyer Medical Building. They're out by, there it is, out near Dairy Farmers, and some of you have probably seen it under construction. So really this is, the resolution of intent was issued for these IRBs and approved by the full commission on October 27th, 2016. So tonight really is following through and finalizing an action this commission granted back in October of 2016. And that's what it looks like. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor? Please come forward, state your name. Seeing none, is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition? Again, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Any members of the commission have any questions or comments?
Move for approval.
Second. We got a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley. Walters. The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Thank you very much. That concludes our meeting for the evening.
I still think I hold the record of 11
What?
minutes.